time. Where's the baby mama? And how comes she has this kind of agency over who he's talking to and the timings, and he can't have his phone on? Where is she at?
At that point, she never popped up. She was never an issue. She stopped texting. I don't know. She just, in regards to our relationship, she just vanished.
How did she know what she looked like?
She got my number from his phone because of how I was saved, and she checked the conversations. So I'm sure she just guessed according to how the conversations went. That's how she was able to get me. But at this point...
Had you met face to face?
No.
Okay.
I'd only seen photos of her. So I never know how she looked or anything about her. So at this point where Bumpy is telling me per se, to get another woman so that we can have a threesome, she wasn't there anymore. The baby mama wasn't an issue as she was prior. So one day specifically, Bumpy tells me that I want to take you out, and the role of us going out is for you to find another woman that you're going to be attracted to.
Can I just ask a question? Listen, I have no strong judgment on polygamy or polyamory. Do what you want to do. There are things I feel like maybe are not for me because I don't know how to do them. Yeah. I don't have the skill set or maybe the emotional bandwidth. So I'm just curious for you. Is this something that was not out of the norm for you? Did you maybe grow up seeing this kind of dynamic or polygamy? And why was it almost like an easy sell? Why were you able to be won over? Like, okay, maybe it's something I'd consider.
It wasn't something I'd ever seen, ever. The way I knew polygamy to run and the way he wanted it was something I had never seen, ever.
Did he come from a polygamous home? Or maybe a religion that leaned towards polygamy?
No. Not at all. He keeps saying he was, but no, not that I saw. But so that happened. And the reason it was easy for me to be sold into it's because every time he kept telling me, you don't want to lose me, right? And I'm like, yeah, of course I wouldn't. Then do the things that I would want or I need to be a happy man. And he'd always go about, if you don't do it, if I'm not getting the woman from you, I'll eventually go out and get the woman for myself. And I'm like, but if you go get the woman for yourself, that's cheating because it means you have to date them, court them and all that. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so do I get to know about it? Like, no, because you were given the opportunity, but you didn't do it. So I'm like, oh. So I have to choose between getting this woman and just letting him get one. Me being me, I was always on Tinder looking for women. Like my bio was looking for women for threesomes. That was my bio. And women would flood in my DM.
Interesting.
They would flood my DM.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
Real women or like bots? Or...
No, women. Women that would give me their numbers.
You know what? That's kind of... I'm a bit disturbed, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, like, go women. That's pretty...
Yeah.
Yo, that's wild. Yeah. Okay.
So they'd always flood
and Tinder, you said?
Yeah.
Yikes.
So they'd always just see my bio and all send photos and their phone number. Photos and phone number. So it was easy. So the moment I first got one, I took just one number from Tinder. The conversation was simple. I didn't even need to sell anything. I was just like, are you available this weekend? Because I'm off this weekend. My man is off. Are you available? Can I have a threesome and see how it goes? Everybody was just like, yes. It's the first one I had and I was like, oh, interesting. So we had the first threesome. My first thought was like, oh, fuck. This is not okay. It doesn't feel okay with me because a threesome, I have to participate. And then there's a point I have to wait as the other woman and Bumpy are intimate. And then she also has to wait as Bumpy and I are intimate. And then Bumpy has to wait as me and the other woman are intimate. And it just didn't sit well. I was shaky. And Bumpy seemed easy about it. He was right into character. And immediately in all the women we had, he would always want to ask, Are you okay if you spend the night? Do you want to come again? He'd always just want to give them girlfriend roles immediately. Will you cook for us supper? Will you oil my back? Like such things. And the women were just like, yeah, okay, this.
So it happened more than once?
It happened more than once, more than 5 times as well.
And how did this sit with you, like being intimate with another woman?
It wasn't sitting well with me. I'd complain and complain and complain. And each time I complained, Bumpy would be like, you're just not being a source of peace. Honestly, you're not being a source of peace. And I'm like, what does a source of peace mean? I'm just complaining about the things you want us to do and they're not sitting well with me. It doesn't feel like this is something I want to do the next one. It got to a point where he'd take my phone, enter Tinder himself, and talk to the women and plan those things. So I'd get home, say from work, I've gone back to my pet sitter, and he says, are you coming over today? I'm like, yeah, I'm even just gotten home. I want to carry the things over and come. And the woman would be there. And I was like, wow, okay. So after a few times of that happening, one day I just sat down and told him, this can go on. So I want to leave. I want to leave this relationship because it seems like I'm bending and bending to do the things you want. And at that time, we're having so many threesomes that I cannot keep count, one. Also, he's still cheating with other women. So I'm asking him, it seems like you're a man who does not get satisfied. There's no way you'll have threesomes every other weekend and still cheat. So he'd cheat, and I'm just like, I can't keep up. So on the day that happened, 2 weeks later, he tells me, how about we move in together? Instead of me doing shopping in your house or you paying rent and all that, let's just have this house. And his house, rent was not paid because it was their house. So I was like, are you sure? And it came at a point where I wanted to move from my bedsitter to a 1-bedroom. So it's like, instead of looking for the 1-bedroom, the day you said you were moving, because I had found a house and everything, so I was about to go pay. He's like, no, instead, I found a lorry, you'll move your things to my house. I was like, oh, okay. And then at this point, my mom has stopped being bitter with Bumpy. Now they're being friends to a point where we can go out together, hang out together. So I was okay with it. I moved in. On moving in, I got pregnant, I think two months later. So I found out I'm pregnant and I've not even told my mom I moved in with Bumpy. So I'm just like, okay, so which one do I tell her first? So I first told her, oh, Mom, I moved in with Bumpy. And my mom is like, that's okay, but we need to do the traditional steps, at least just one before anything happens. And I'm like, why? Just in case. And I don't know, she always kept saying, just in case something happens, you need the men, like, wale wa baba wa boma, you see? And I was like, okay.
And by traditional steps, she means the conversations that happen to finalize a marriage in the traditional way. Okay, so the conversation of marriage between the two of you and your mom was already something that was in the air.
Yeah, it was always there. It's something she always asked. What's the end goal? What are you planning? When is it happening? And I'm like, I know I'm planning this. This is what we talk about with Bumpy. But now the when is on his end. So when I moved in, she just was easy about it, but insisted with the traditional men coming home. By the time I told her that, another 2 weeks later, I told her, Mom, I'm pregnant. And even her worry went through the window. She was now excited to be a new grandma. And now, considering she raised me, I was an only child. So she was really, really excited. So she was really happy and now stopped worrying. It seemed like now, once I've told her I'm pregnant, the planning of the traditional steps took a slow pace.
Oh, I would have assumed that
it would have gone faster.
It would have gone faster.
So it went for a slow pace for a while, just until her excitement ended. And then from there, it was now, Baba Bumpy needs to come. We need to decide, all that. So in a span of a month, it happened in October. The men came, the dad came, the parents and all that. They got to meet my family, and that happened. And that was beautiful. We went back home now to our marital home, and things went well.
Was his mom more
warm
towards you?
Yeah, she had changed. She had become very fond of me. to a point where she would call me, send me for errands in town. We became very good friends eventually once she got to understand my side of the story and my mom's side as well. Yeah. And then as pregnancy grew, my pregnancy was the most beautiful. I had no morning sickness, no nothing, no cravings, no nothing. I was just a normal person with a growing belly. And my tummy did not show until it was 7 months. So all through I'd work, I'd do my jobs very well, I'd do everything. And then there was this one point I remember we were being intimate with Bumpy. And I remember telling him, I'm feeling very uncomfortable, very out of breath. And intimacy just doesn't sound exciting as it used to be. This man looked at me with a straight face and told me, if that's the case, how about unitafutie msichana nitakuwa nalala na yeye while you are in your last months of pregnancy. What he said is, at this specific moment, what I told him, his reply was, how about you find me a woman that I can be intimate with in your last months of pregnancy, since you're not able to be intimate with me as your husband, because I have needs. I looked at him baffled. I'm like, wow. And he laughed and brushed it off and he left. The thing is still ringing in my mind. I'm like, why would he say that? Since he brushed it off, I thought he just said it. So 2 days later, I addressed it and he's just like, no, it was just a thought. It would be nice and all. In the process, there's a friend, I don't know if I should call her a friend, but there's this person that was really into Bumpy and really into me. And Bumpy was also really into this lady, but I wasn't. You see? And this specific lady, we had lost touch, but she wanted to come back into this dynamic. So she was looking for me in social media, looking for Bumpy on his pages and all. So she found me and she's like, oh, I want to visit you guys. Did the relationship move to the next level? I'm like, yeah, we got married and I'm pregnant and I'm almost due. She's like, oh, perfect. Let me come and help.
Was she one of the ladies that you'd previously had a threesome with?
Yes. So at this point, and I explained to her, now we're not doing the threesomes, so are you still okay visiting? She's like, yeah, I just want to visit, see how you're doing, so because I still consider you as a friend. I'm like, cool. So she came. She visited. I'm there in the kitchen, because when she came, I was already in the kitchen. So I've gone back to do what I was doing in the kitchen, and I've left her with Bumpy. I come back and they're all over each other, and I'm like, what am I seeing? And they do not even seem startled or baffled by the fact that I've walked in. They just continue with whatever they were doing. And I'm just like, okay. Then I went back to the kitchen, finished what I was doing. At this point, I'm crying. Bumpy came to the kitchen. He's holding me and I'm like, don't touch me. Just don't touch me. Thank you. And he's like, why? I'm like, because, once we got pregnant, we had a rule. The pregnancy was like our clean slate. The baby is not here and you've already gone back into things we made a rule a few months ago. How are you going to manage with a whole child in our lives for the next 25 years?
What was the rule?
The rule was no more women and no more threesomes. We are going to go back into a normal family dynamic. No more sexual experiments. That was the rule. And that rule was one that he gave, actually. Yeah. So I was very surprised that he'd go back on something he said. And he's like, yeah, I know. But he starts to justify. He's like, but she came, her tits are showing, she looks all sexy. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay. I served myself my food and went to the bedroom, watched my movie, and just operated as though they were not there. He came and he's like, it's okay, I've told her to go home. And I'm like, you seemed excited. She was here, so just stay. I'll be fine. I locked the room. He thought I was joking. I locked the room and he wasn't able to enter the room and access me. The morning I woke up, went to work. I think it was my last day of work because my due date was really approaching. But this girl was still there. She was asleep on one end of the couch and Bumpy was on the other end of the couch.
What do you mean there? When you woke up the next day to go to work?
She was still in the house.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
After I've been told that she left. So I was very surprised. I was like, oh, interesting. So she sees me, Bumpy sees me, he's awake, and he's like, you locked the room. And I'm like, yes, I know. The girl is like, I'm sorry. Bumpy told me about the argument you have, and I'm sorry I went against it. I'm like, you're sorry because Bumpy told you. I also told you before you walked into the house. So you respect nothing about me or about Bumpy.
Well, what did you think would happen if you had her over? Do you genuinely think that she was just coming to see you guys, see how you guys are doing?
Genuinely, yes. I just expected her to be a friend and to take what I told her as that. So I genuinely expected her to come see me pregnant, I don't know, help around the house and leave. But that's not what happened. But later on, I came to know that Bumpy actually found her on social media and told her that I was okay with the threesomes. So she came knowing what Bumpy told her. And what I told her about we're no longer doing threesomes, the moment she told Bumpy about it, Bumpy was like, we've just spoken about it and we are go. So she came knowing that our threesomes and that whole dynamic is a go. So she just came and picked it up, from where she left. But from my reaction, she now knew something was off and she was willing to now leave us alone. And I was like, since Bump is the one who's giving us go-aheads around this house and I have nothing to do with it, let him decide. As for me, I have to go to work. I went to work. I moved around my day very well. I came back home and she was still home. And me in my hormones, I just wanted to be in my house with my husband. I just entered the house and asked, why are you here? Is what I asked her. Why are you still in my house? Bumpy's like, why are you talking to her like that? I'm like, because she's in my house. She is a guest. She needs to leave. She's like, oh, Bumpy told me to stay. I'm like, I'm the woman of this house and I've told you to leave. I took her clothes, threw them across the living room, and I'm like, leave right now. My kid was around 7. And she's like, I live very far. And I'm like, I don't care. Just leave my house now. Bumpy is like, no, it's okay. Let her spend. And then she can leave in the morning. I'm like, you know what? That's what you want. I will go to my mom's house and you will stay here with your guest. And in the morning when she goes, you will tell me, your wife, if you want me back into our house. And he slapped me. And I and the lady all looked at him like he was crazy. This lady just took her clothes and left. And I was like, oh, now you're slapping me in front of another woman because I'm asking the woman who's not your wife to leave. And he's like, yeah, because you and this pregnancy, all you've been doing are things that you want. And I'm like what, for example? Because the only thing I've told you right now is I want the woman gone, but you seem not to want her gone. He slapped me again. And I'm like, okay, I think, Bumpy, something's wrong with you in your head. Because you can clearly see that I have your child in my tummy, right? And I feel like he was in a trance of anger. The moment I said, I'm having your child in my tummy, I'd see him like awaken from something. Like he'd shake his head like he's just waking up from a trance. And I asked him, are you okay? He's like, I'm so sorry. And at this moment, I don't even want him to touch me. I went to the bathroom. I showered. He wants to get into the bathroom with me. And I'm like, don't try me. I go, I oil my belly. I do what I always do. Then I use the laptop. On using the laptop, I open WhatsApp. Like there was an icon there. So I'm just opening it just to check if it was my WhatsApp because I was also using the laptop prior. And to my surprise, it was his WhatsApp. Still flirting with his baby mama. Still flirting with another woman. And people he used to train when he was employed. And there were a lot of nudes. A lot of thank you for coffee. It was nice spending the night with you. And once I looked at those chats, I was just like, this is the night he told me he had a boys thing. This is the night he said he had Bible study. This is the night he said he had a business trip. All that. All could now see them in conversations. I didn't talk about it because I also have very bad anger and I tend to talk very, very bad when I'm angry. So I was just like, you know what, let me sleep and I'll talk about it in the morning. In the morning, it's calm. He said, I'm going to the gym, I'll be back. He comes back and I want to address it. And I couldn't keep cool, and I'm like, you are crazy. You're about to have a child. You're still talking with your baby mama. And this other woman that we handled a few days ago, why are they still recurring? Why is this woman recurring? Why is your baby mama still somebody you're flirting with? What's going on? You're married. You're getting a child. So what's going on? It's like, no, since you didn't want me to be intimate with other women, I just thought maybe talking to them is not harm. And I'm like, since when? Show me where. I'm like, no, this is not something I'll tolerate. I don't want this. Give me your phone. I want to address everybody. I'll send them messages. He threw that phone across and it hit me straight on my forehead. And I was like, oh, so we are still hitting me and hitting now me with things interesting. I was like, I left and I told him, you know what? Continue with your women. Actually, seems you're happier when there are very many women. That's where you prosper. And he was like, okay. He seems he wants to talk about it. I did not want to talk about it at that specific time. So what he did instead, he pulled me by my locks, dragged me from the bedroom across the floor till the sitting room and put me on the chair. And I'm like, I said I don't want to talk about it now. You also tell me when you don't want to talk about things, I should understand. Here you are pulling my hair. For what reason? I won't talk about it right now. I value my marriage. I'm like, it doesn't seem like that on text, but I don't want to talk about it right now. He hits me. He strangles me at this point, and I can tell him, Bumpy, I cannot breathe. So I managed to kick his chest with my foot, and he fell. And I'm trying to catch my breath, and I'm like, are you trying to kill me? Because you're strangling me. I'm pregnant. I'm not understanding what war specifically do you think you're going to be winning? I'm pregnant. You're going to win anything you do right now. And again, I can see him getting out of a trance, like he's shaking his head, he's scared. And he starts immediately, sorry. And I'm like, I don't want your sorry. This is something you're doing now. And for the next 2 weeks, he's the most sweetest, most amazing human being I've ever met. He felt like the first person I met in the beginning, years back. And I was happy, and he'd always validate me. It will never happen again. It will never happen again. It will never happen again. And I was content. So this one specific time, we were sharing the laptop. I still go into the laptop. I'm writing a document because my assistant is at work. So I'm supposed to write documents for my clients for us to get paid. So I'm on the laptop. I'm now trying to connect my WhatsApp with WhatsApp web on the laptop. And I see his WhatsApps. And I can notice that there's a woman he's been clearly talking to that is clearly pregnant with his child. And I was trying to collect my jaw from the floor. I was angry. I immediately start crying, and I'm like, why? I had very few weeks to delivery, and it's not making sense. He comes home, and I'm asking him, what's the meaning of all this? I need an explanation. He opens his mouth and tells me that woman was depressed, and I was just acting as a father figure to her and the child she's about to have. And I'm like, wow, is that why she's asking for your names to put in the birth certificate? Is that why she's saying our child? Is that why she's asking when will you take your dad to her house? Is that the reason? He gets mad and punches. There's a mirror we had on the wall. He punches that mirror. He starts bleeding. At this point, I think I was so used to it. I just look at him and I'm like, another dent. Let's see who'll pick it up this time. He had a bike, so he'd take the car keys and leave. And for once, I didn't stop him. I actually gave him his other riding gear. I'm like, here, please go. Because this is what you always do. He left. I did not pick up any glass. I left them there. So when he came back, he found them there. He cleaned them up and he came to the bedroom. It's like, you didn't even call me to get to know where I was. And I'm like, what for? Why would I? Why would you bang the mirror, break the mirror, and then come? You've left. at a point where you know you have done something wrong and then you want me to now be concerned. It's like, if I leave, sometimes I might get out and get hit. And for a brief moment, I replied. I told him it would be better rather than having you around this house with all that you're taking me through. I had approximately 3 weeks to deliver. But according to when you go to the doctor and they give you that due date and all, it was actually supposed to be a month and a half, but I gave birth 3 weeks later. So in the 3 weeks, he was good. He was very good. And now what happened is, you remember the woman who was in the house that I came home to that was still in the house, and I asked why hasn't she left yet? One day she came home. Apparently, Bumpy talked to her because Bumpy could not get through to me. I had gotten to a point where I had a wall. I didn't care about him, what he did, what he wanted. I just follow what he said. He's like, we're going to the market. I'm like, okay, let's go. We're doing this. Okay, let's go. I was there. I never questioned. I never did anything. So Bumpy was worried. So Bumpy called this lady, and this lady started talking to me. So instead of calling me on phone, what she did is she came home. Bumpy was not home, but she was. So I asked her, why are you home? She's like, Bumpy told me you're not okay. So I'm here to figure out why. I'm like, one, you're the reason number one among the reasons we're not okay. Came to our house. You are touchy with my husband after I specifically told you something. You didn't have the courtesy to come ask me if that's how it is. You just took Bumpy's side and went with it. And she says, in my defense, Bumpy is the man. I was like, okay. And she's like, but that was then. Now I'm here for you. I want to listen to you. And I told her, actually,
Do you know, I'm sorry, I'm in a bit of what was informing this structure? There was something behind it, like, this is the man, you have to follow this. If you're saying you did not grow up seeing this.
The structure was, and this is something Bumpy threw around in any situation, was you're raised by a single mom. You wouldn't know how households run. You wouldn't know anything about submission. And since honestly and genuinely I did not know, because I was raised by a single mom, I did not see her submit to somebody, especially at an older age, to see how submission goes, I'd believe it. And he would always say, but I know submission, I know the role of a man because he has both parents. So I was just like, okay, that makes sense.
I really do wonder about that because I don't want to come off. I know there's people who actually live by that, where the man says the final word.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if it's right. I don't think you should always be fighting with your partner if that's the agreement you've come into. But at what point does the woman have a little bit of a say?
At that time, I did not know when the woman had the say. Because according to him, who knows how submission works and how a household runs, he always said that the man has the final say. And since I always wanted to show that I'm a submissive woman and a woman who wants to be an added piece of value to him, I'd stick with that.
Did you not have any friends to talk to about what was going on in your marriage, in your family life, in your relationship?
I did. Funny thing is, yes, I did. I never said those dark parts. Why? Because Bumpy and Bumpy's mom always told me that marriage stuff are never told to anybody else other than the household you're in. So according to Bumpy's mom, it was, if you're not able to solve it with Bumpy, come tell me. So I tell her, yes. So I've told Bumpy's mom. Bumpy's mom is like, oh, you're the one with the temper. Reduce your temper. So I'd always fit into that. So if I know I have a temper, instead of speaking when angry, I'd speak the following day. If I always want to nudge something, instead of always asking, I'd just wait until it's an appropriate time and ask Bumpy.
I think those are admirable traits, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think you should not speak when you're in a heightened state, and it's always good to kind of take some time before
Yeah.
you retort. But there's some dysfunction there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's what I always did. So every time he'd hit me, I'd go back and maybe say, I'm the reason. Why? Bumpy says I'm the reason. Bumpy's mom also says I added to the reason why Bumpy was hitting me. So I'd always try and find out why. And I came to understand when Bumpy said, you're not being peaceful, it's because I found out he was cheating. In his head, I was not supposed to find out, but I found out. So finding out, questioning him, wanting answers, wanting accountability and all that, to him was not being peaceful. But that I found out later on. So this lady has come home, and believe it or not, Jules, I specifically told this lady, Bumpy says he wants somebody to be intimate with at this moment that I'm not.